CNT125 Security and Design. We just got done doing the initial configuration of the firewall on command line, and we just logged into our firewall with the GUI. I'm going to do that again real quickly just in case you need that refresher. I looked at the IP address on my machine, and I noted the gateway is this. That is the firewall port that I'm attached to. I'm going to take that IP address, I'm going to put it in my browser bar, 192.168.1.99. I'm going to enter. I might need to do the whole prompted register firewall select later. I might even need to do accept the security risk under the advanced tab. Once I've done that, I should be able to use the username of admin and the password that we set previously. Okay, so I will do that. And now I should get into the main firewall page, if you will, main configuration page, the dashboard they call it. So we're going to take a look around and maybe do a couple little settings on here to get a feel for how to set up a basic firewall. So we're going to look at the system settings on the left. So over here we're going to look at system. We're going to go to settings. First thing we're going to check is, here's where the host name is. I could change the host name there if I wanted to. I could also adjust the time, date, and time. Right now, we're going to adjust it to, we're in the Eastern time zone. So we're going to do Eastern time. Here would be, again, I could set my host name, my date, my time, those pieces. I could even change my access, where I get access to, what port I would use, etc. I could adjust these for access, telnet port, SSH port, port 80, port 443, etc. Okay. Once I've reset my time zone, I'm going to do apply down here. It should take a second and it'll apply those to my firewall. I'm going to go back to my dashboard to my status. From here, we're now going to take a look at the interfaces. The interfaces on the firewall. The LAN and WAN interfaces on my firewall. So over here on the left, we'll go to Network. We're going to go to Interfaces. And this shows me the interfaces I have. Now, it is very possible these are collapsed like this when you first open this window. Just expand them if you need to. Okay. This shows all the interfaces that are here. If I look at the top, I have a little GUI representation of my LAN port. One is connected up, and my WAN port is connected up. If I even hover over them, that it lets you know, the up arrow lets you know it's active and functioning. It even tells you a little bit of information about it, including the IP address. So on the WAN port, we're getting a 172.21 from the ISP, or hack in our case. On the LAN, this is actually, it shows that we're a gig port, full duplex, but I don't have any details on it, but it shows that it's on. This is the port we have connected to our switch. So down here, I can highlight these and look at the, I can actually act like I'm going to edit it and look at some settings on this. So I'll highlight the LAN port, and I'll do edit here. And this now gives me all the details of the LAN port. Here's where the IP address is manually. This is manually set. I could even adjust this to be DHCP if I wanted to. Here's the administrative access. Again, I could turn on or turn off these depending on what I need to do for security purposes. Here is the DHCP server. It's set to hand out 110 to 210. Again, I could alter that. I could shut it off. I could turn it on. I could change the subnet that's being handed out here. And down here, again, some additional settings of things I might need to turn on, turn off. We're not going to make any of those changes right now. We're just going to do cancel here, and we're going to look at the WAN port. Look at the WAN port here. We'll do edit on this guy. Same thing. This is set up for DHCP. This is getting an IP address from, in this case, hack. I could renew that. I could set it manual if I needed to. And then down here, again, I could alter some access to this. What is allowed administrative access, what's not on the WAN port. I could allow some HTTP or SSH access to this firewall for admin purposes from outside. So maybe this firewall is installed at a particular site of our company, and I need to be able to get access to it from, Lancaster to Philly kind of thing. I would enable SSH here, that I could SSH into this firewall and do configuration onto it. All right, we'll do a cancel on that guy. So there is our LAN and WAN interfaces. Let's do a test now on what is our machine, how is our machine now acting that we are connected through a firewall. Because again, we have this setup going on. Our PC is connected to the switch to the firewall to the college or ISP. So let's do a quick test on what our PC now knows, or what our PC now has. So I'm going to go back to my PC here. Again, let's do an ipconfig. And I should note the 192. This is coming from the firewall. We had a 172 before we started. We now have a 192. So the first question here is 192. Okay. What's the subnet mask? Okay. There it is right there. So it's a default C, if you will. What's your default gateway? 192.168.1.99. And what's significant? Well, this is the address of the firewall right there. We know it because we just browsed into it. That is the address of the firewall. And then from there, do we have DHCP running? Well, yes, because I got my IP address from the firewall. And if I go to my network settings on my PC, let's go to my network settings here, and look at my IP address, IP version 4 address settings, I'll see that I'm set for dynamically. So it is getting its IP address from the firewall. And if I do this right here, if I do ipconfig/all, I can see under Ethernet 3, I can see that I got the lease on this date at this time. So if I do a release on this, so let's do a ipconfig release, and we'll turn around and do a renew, we should see the lease change. So I'm going to do an ipconfig all now. The IP address probably will not change. I'm still have a 110, that's fine. But I'll see that my lease obtained is now 928, which is exactly the time that I have. So I'm getting this from the DHCP server that's installed on the firewall. That's where this is coming from. Is the firewall running NAT? How do I know? Well, if I go back to my firewall status here, close all this out. Hopefully I can still go back to here to my status. I'll go back into my interfaces, network interfaces. The WAN port is a 172.21. The LAN port is 192.168. That has translated the address from the ISP into this private addressing scheme of 192.168. So yes, it is running NAT. Absolutely. So before we started the lab, we did a couple tests. We checked if we could browse, if we could ping, if we could telnet. We're going to check those now. Let's see if we still have access to all these. So let's open a place like Google. Let's open a place like Hack. Okay, so I still have browsing, HTTP, HTTPS access. Good deal. Can I ping a place like Google? Let's try it. Ping www.google.com. I still can. Okay. All right. So I can browse. I can ping. Let's try my telnet. So I'm going to open up my PuTTY again. Let's do telnet. Pay attention to the port number it's using. We'll do telehack.com. And I'm going to do Star Wars. If I can type. There we are. So my telnet is working. Well, let's try. We didn't try SSH earlier, but we have SSH configured on the firewall. So let's try SSH access. So let's try SSH. Note the port number. We're going to do the 192.168.1.99. That is the gateway address. That's the address we were using to browse in. That is also the gateway address that we have for our config. So if I go up here again, here is my gateway address right there. If I use that, I should be able to SSH into it. So we're going to try that. We're going to plug in. We're going to accept the encryption key. Absolutely. We're going to log in as admin, and we're going to use password because that's what we said. And there we are, Brown FortiGate firewall. So I have SSH access. So I'm going to exit on that. What we're seeing is everything we could do before, we can do now. So that tells us that the firewall is really not blocking anything yet. The firewall is just kind of letting it all through. Kind of like, opening the toll gates. Everybody can drive right through. So we want to put some rules on to minimize the type of traffic moving through the firewall. So let's do that. Actually, no, before we do that, let's use some traffic on the firewall. I'm almost got ahead of myself. We are going to do that in a little bit. We're going to filter the traffic. But let's look at some traffic moving through the firewall before we do. So back on my firewall, over here, I'm going to close my extra tabs. We're going to go to the FortiView all sessions. So we're going to go to FortiView. we're going to look at all sessions in here. This is showing me my traffic moving through all the sessions that are currently running through. So some of these were the 443, there's 53 DNS. We might even see, if I keep scrolling through here, I might even see some 23 telnets that were there, possibly. I'm not going to dig for it, but this shows me all the sessions coming from the 192.161.110, my PC. That's what I'm seeing. So we're going to do the network option over here, and we're going to do packet capture. So we're going to do a packet capture. Okay, so we're going to create a new, and we're going to select the LAN port. So let's do create new. We're going to select the LAN port that we've been using, LAN right here. Okay, and once I have that, we're going to say OK. And we're going to do, after we do that, we're going to click on, double click on the session created and click start. So we're going to double click on this session that we just created, and we're going to do a start here. Right here, this little start button capturing progress. We'll do a start. And now once that is running, we're going to redo our telnet session. So I'm going to open up my PuTTY again, and we're going to redo my telnet to telehack.com. We'll say open. We're going to do Star Wars, and we'll let that run a couple seconds. That's good. I'm going to do a Control-C to stop that. I'm going to close out my telnet session. And over here, we're going to hit the stop button. Okay. And after that, we're going to do the download button. This will download this as a Wireshark file. That's what that's doing, a PCAP file. It's going to download as a Wireshark file. So we're going to go to our downloads folder, and we're going to open that up with Wireshark. So we'll go to the downloads folder. There we are. There's our LAN root. We're going to double click on that because that's already recognized as a Wireshark file. We're going to open that up. And in here, we're going to do a filter for, let's do a filter for telnet. So up here in the top bar, we'll do telnet. And we're going to look at our telnet data. So I'm going to, let's do it this way here. I'm going to get this open so I can see the telnet data. And we're just going to start scrolling through here. And we're going to look for, this is where we first logged into the telnet site. And then I should start seeing, there's the S for Star Wars, TARWARS, and then it starts displaying the screen. So there's my telnet packet capture, captured from the firewall. And you can see your telnet data is clear text, just like we saw in the last lab. Telnet being clear text, that's not secure. That's why we typically don't use Telnet, and typically will block Telnet, which is what we're going to do here very shortly. But there is my Telnet data. I'm going to save that. I'm going to save this right here, or I should say keep this file handy. So I'm going to close that out. And in my downloads, I'm going to drag this over to my 125 folder. So I have this. I'm going to put it in my security and design lab right there. I'm going to have that file for submission at the end of the lab. I'm going to keep that handy. So that way we gathered packets from the firewall, which is pretty slick. That's a pretty neat little feature in there. So I have that. I will save that. I can do a cancel here. That'll close that out. We're going to come back in the next part, and we're going to put a firewall rule in the firewall here and then test its function.